Well, we're here for Unscripted. Welcome. Happy Christmas. Delighted to be joined by boxing royalty, music royalty, culinary royalty as well. And we're pulling Christmas crackers and we're talking about the year that's gone. So I think we should start with the champ, don't you? I mean, I thought about a round of applause for the champ. I mean, you know. Okay, that's the first one you've lost in a while, to be fair. Right. Here we go. I'm not putting the hat. My head is so big.
You have to put it on. Right? You can't do.
I will do it because you're getting the Christmas spirit. But my head's so big.
Like,
you
already
know it's not going to fit.
We already know your head's big.
There you go. We'll just leave it like that. Okay. Fight of the year. Mike, you've commentated a lot across a lot of them. I mean, firstly, fight of the year that you might have seen, or it could be one that you've commentated on. But this year, I think I know what you're going to say. But over to you.
I'll start with one that I've commentated on, which was Lee Wood against Michael Conlan. Just unbelievable. The shock in the first round, in that if you had predicted there was going to be a knockdown early on, you would have said it was Lee Wood, and it was Lee Wood on the deck. And then just the way the fight evolved, and just as it went past halfway, you're starting to think Lee Wood's really gaining ground here. And then Conlan goes down at the end of the 11th round. And so I remember that the atmosphere and the buzz as they got up from their stalls ahead of the 12th round. There's 3 minutes to go. Which way is it going to go? Is it going to last the full 3 minutes? And then you get the knockout. And then behind that is the kind of drama and the fear, because where we were sat here. So if I'm commentating here,
was you where we come out?
No, Conlan was where you are. So he's over the other side of the ring. He falls out of our view. And our producer, Jim Bentley, is a great guy, decided that we weren't going to show replays because we just didn't know how badly hurt Conlan was. We didn't know if he'd hit his head on the ground beneath the ring. So, and there was this really dark, almost silent atmosphere around ringside as he fell. And it was a really difficult one to deal with. You've gone from the euphoria of this great fight to genuinely, and I've been ringside on some horrible, tragic nights, and it really felt like it was developing into that as the paramedics started to gather over the far side of the ring. And eventually, you know, we signed off the broadcast without showing a single replay of the finish or of anything that was happening around the paramedics. So from where I was sat still, we had no idea, you know, look, to put it bluntly, that he was still alive. We didn't know that. So in so many ways, that was a really memorable night. And I remember getting back to the hotel and seeing all sorts of matchroom staff and saying, this is one of those. It felt like at that stage, before Michael Conlan had got back from hospital, it felt like Nigel Benn against Gerald McClellan, in that you couldn't celebrate what was a great fight. And it's almost, even now, all these years on, you can't describe that as a classic because of, you know, what happened afterwards.
I think Conlan's took it in his stride though and done well since.
He's come back brilliantly.
It's funny because, like, Lee Wood was the B-side in that fight, really. And Michael Conlan was very outspoken and gave him a lot of shit in the build-up to that fight.
With the coaches.
Yeah, and really you'd think now that because of how good that fight was and because of the drama, you'd just do the rematch.
Yeah, run it back.
But boxing's such a strange game where everything that was said in the build-up to Lee and to Ben Davison and all these people, you know, and I had Michael Conlan's dad next to me, who's a really great guy. And, you know, in that first round, Lee Wood was doing quite well, and I was up, and then all of a sudden, Conlan chins him, and his dad's like, "Brr," and he was ribbing me the whole fight. It was a shame that it had to end that way, because really we should have been celebrating what was like, and even the atmosphere was, you know, there's a few coins coming in and stuff like that.
It was a fantastic fight. I remember watching it at home, and I'm from Nottingham, my hometown, so I know the energy there is always top drawer. Obviously, Carl fought there for many years. I remember watching the fight, and I remember the shot that put him through the ropes. I was like, didn't even look like a big shot. And he's like, his leg went, and I was like, ooh. Yeah. And you know, you could just tell the way he like collapsed over that it was not a normal, wasn't a normal knockdown.
Yeah, he was kind of starting to break down a little bit. As there's a few rounds before, you could see that Conlan was actually starting to get a little bit slow with his reactions, because the kind of style of fight that he is, it's all about reaction and that slickness. So then as it got on further, Lee Wood was able to land some more punches, and he was getting caught up in it a little bit more because of obviously getting tired, as you would as a fight. So I think it was just a bit of a build up, and that kind of shot when being a bit tired. Yeah, it was pretty, and it was just, I think, like you said, the way it went from like Conlon pretty much just boxing his head off to like that. It's like, it's not just like a great fight, it's like a big upset, really. You know?
Lee hit the nail on the head though. I think he says if I'm still there in the 12th round, I'm going to knock him out.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's what happened.
But also from Nottingham, Lee Wood's been great. Like, Lee Wood used to beg to go on Carl Froch undercards. And he's not a spring chicken.
He's been around a long
But
time.
he's had those defeats and he's come back and he's like, listen, he boxed Reece Mould behind closed doors for the British title, right? I think we paid him 15 grand.
Was that in Nottingham?
No, that was behind closed doors during the pandemic, right? And then all of a sudden, he wins that fight. He gets the opportunity to fight Kanzu, again behind closed doors at Fight Camp, right? Beats him for the world title. And next thing, he's making like an absolute fortune to Michael Conlon, and he's about to do it again. And the mad bastard wants to fight Maurizio Lara. You know.
I do genuinely, it just shows you though, like persistence.
Yeah.
You know, he's been working hard for so many years, and he deserves every opportunity he gets now. Because, like you said, he's been around a long time.
Yeah. You two, come on, open a cracker. You two, because otherwise we're going to look at all these crackers we've got to get through. Go on then, Mike.
Here we go.
It's the rolled up bit.
The drama builds.
Oh, it's a long one.
Right, choose 5 boxing people, dead or alive, to join us for Christmas dinner. Well, you're the man for this one.
Yeah.
Am I
5
cooking?
people, dead or alive.
Well, we should pick one each, no? So I'll start. Probably one of my favourite fighters of all time, and I think just for pure entertainment value, I'd probably have to go with Mike Tyson. He'd have to be around the table, I think.
Well, I'm jumping in with Muhammad Ali. I mean, I know it's a bit predictable, but all of a sudden we got Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali for dinner.
I wouldn't mind Chris Eubank Senior, you know.
Really?
A bit laughed
Well,
at, wouldn't
blimey, no one's going to get a word in here.
I? A bit laughed at.
Imagine Muhammad Ali and Chris Eubank Senior. I mean, oh my God. Eb? Shannon O'Connell? You wouldn't let her in.
Shannon O'Connell. You know what? Look, I love myself. Chavez, Julio Cesar Chavez.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to go with the English,
Yeah, it
but
wouldn't
he'll
go
have to
very well.
choose someone with English.
Okay? There'll be a lot of cake.
He's just like, nod. Maybe like, I'm trying to think who would be like super. You said past and present, hey? Maybe Tyson Fury.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I think that'd be a good addition.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, and along your theme, I'd go with Angelo Dundee.
Wow, yeah.
I was lucky enough to interview him half a dozen times, and the stories that man has got, the fund of stories, not just about Muhammad Ali, but about boxing. At a time, a really important time for the whole of the sport globally. You know, he linked up with Muhammad Ali and others in the 1960s when television was just coming on board. I know that sounds strange, but you know, I've done a lot of work on the history of that, and a lot of fighters were almost scared of a microphone, scared of a camera, whereas Dundee encouraged Ali to really embrace these as his friends. If you speak to that microphone and that camera, your voice will reach thousands and thousands. It's not just the guy behind the microphone you're talking to. This, you know, your message will spread. And this was at a time, you go back, was really primitive. You know, I mean, I was born in 1960, but didn't have a colour telly till I was 12. So, you know, we're talking about primitive communications here. But these two between them really embraced what was happening and what was changing. When a lot of people outside were just dismissing it in the way that YouTube's been dismissed. Even the internet early on was dismissed.
Yeah.
And it's hard to imagine that was the attitude towards TV back then. And it was, you know, there was very little sport on TV when they were coming through.
I think Ali as well was one of the very first to like break down celebrating himself. He made it acceptable to tell everyone he was great. You know, that was frowned upon for a long time and is more so now. I feel like probably with the power of the media, people feel to be media trained, to say what they need to say, where Ali was very much about expressing himself, believing in himself and championing that.
But can we just say, what a table? Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Tyson Fury, Chris Eubank Jr., Senior, and Angelo Dundee.
It's a big turkey.
That's a big turkey. I bet you if you had them in your restaurant, you wouldn't be charging them. You couldn't charge them, could
No
you?
bill, no bill, no bill.
On to the next boxing one.
AJ versus Fury in 2023, question mark. You tell us, Eddie.
I just...
Let's get Tyson Fury here and dinner.
I get this question, walking down every road. I just cannot see that fight not happening. I mean, Tyson Fury, listen, tremendous fighter, what a character. But every interview is something different. You know, once I'm never fighting Anthony Joshua, then I will never be happy with my career unless I fight Anthony Joshua. But you just don't know what's going to play out in boxing. I mean, when they kind of dropped the bait, Fury to fight AJ, it was 2 weeks off coming off the Usyk defeat.
Yeah.
He was mentally broken, we all saw that.
And Fury's trying to give him grief now for wanting to have a fight with White or someone in 2023 instead of fighting for him, but you just fought Sora.
Exactly, you know, but listen, Fury is the master in the ring and the master of manipulation. You know, I think we went to the same school. But at the same time, I always get the grief when I go through the resume, when I talk about consecutive fights, right? And when I look at AJ from fighting Dillian Whyte,
I'm with you, 100%.
to fighting Charles Martin, who, by the way, was 33-0 at the time, was a southpaw that was knocking out everybody. And AJ had like 14 fights, never really boxed anyone. Dillian Whyte, Charles Martin, Dominic Brazil, Eric Molina, Vladimir Klitschko, Carlos Takam, Joseph Parker in unification, Alexander Povetkin, Andy Ruiz, Pulev, Usyk. That's his run of fights over 4 or 5 years. Fury, who's had some great wins, has gone, you know, Chisora early on, and then Pianetta and Seferi, Klitschko before that, great win. Deontay Wilder, Tom Schwartz, Otto Warling, Deontay Wilder, Dillian Whyte, Derek Chisora. Like, AJ's never had the easy ones, and I feel like now, like when he accepted the Fury fight, I actually thought, like, you could never say to a fighter, especially of his magnitude, mate, I think you should have a little couple of, but everyone felt that really you should be coming back. I mean, he broke down in tears at the press conference 2 weeks before. You know, he had a bit of a sore elbow, but he's a man of pride. So when Fury calls him out, he's like, fuck it, I'll never get to fight him. Let's just do it. But now he's got the chance to actually get the training team he's happy with. He's still a young man. He ain't really, you know, outside of the Klitschko fights, went down in the Ruiz fight, but it wasn't like he was getting battered around, you know, taking shots for 12 rounds. AJ's all about confidence, because you see, the thing is with a fighter, when you've got an intelligent fighter, you can't just bluff them into thinking everything's all right, you know? They're overthinking, they know, you're smart, you know, if your training team's not right, if you're not confident in what you're doing, you can't perform with it. It doesn't matter someone's going to you, God, you're great, you're this, you're that, just go and knock them out. Because he went into the first Usyk fight just confused, really, going, I remember he was warming up for that fight. He had like a pad of notes, right, that him and the team had put together. And he'd be hitting the pads and he'd go over every now and again and just sort of look at the book. And I'm thinking, no, like, that's the best AJ is, I know exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. I'm going to go in there. But to do that, you need a tutor. Yeah. And that's where Rob McCracken was so important to him in the years. You remember when he boxed Klitschko? Rob McCracken was a big part of winning that fight in round 5 and 6. Listen to me, AJ. Listen to me. Like, as a fighter, you've got to be able to look into a trainer's eyes and go, I'm in trouble here. Tell me what I need to do. Yeah. Not come back to the corner, you've got 6 voices.
Exactly,
like,
yeah, definitely.
You know,
like, I mean, I know obviously as a fighter, it's really important you're all on the same page, and you can't have one person telling you something and another person telling you something else, like, and you can't listen to it, like, even just listening to other people in general, like, everyone wants to have a word, you know, whether it be like a friend or another experienced boxer or people on Twitter or whatever, you know, you just got to listen to your coach. And like, you know, like, I just listened to Mark, you know, and I always say to Mark and Brian, I'm saying, you guys go to talk, make sure you're all on the same page, and then you come to me with the same information.
I remember when you boxed Shannon Courtney, when you came over, you had your Australian coach, you had Brian, you had Callie, you had and everyone was just...
Exactly, but it was really hard because I'd done like a couple of weeks in Australia with my Australian coach, and then like flew over to Brian to be with Brian. I pretty much did my camp with Brian, but then obviously I gave my Australian coach the corner because he'd been with me for the 3 years for my amateur, so I wanted to give him that experience. But it just, it didn't work, and I had to, like, he was telling me things that we all agreed, but then when it got in there, he was telling me completely different things to what we agreed on. And then I was like, wait a second, this is not what I've been working on for 4 weeks, you know, and it was just too many different voices and too much different things. And now I always, you know, I trust in my corner and I make sure they're all on the same page. And Tibbs is really good like that as well, where he will talk to Brian and whoever's there and say, this is what we're doing. And then make sure no one comes in and says anything else, because too many cooks ruin the broth, you know what I mean? Like, it's spoiled, it's just true.
More than anyone, mate.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and I think with Anthony as well, I think people underestimate, if you look at how he came into boxing and his path, I think the huge amount of pressure he probably put on himself and from a lot of others, and the way that he was, you know, kind of highlighted as, you know, and you mention it a lot, Eddie, in a lot of interviews, and you're right, and I agree 100% that he put boxing, and particularly heavyweight boxing, back on the map. And there's a lot of boxers that should be thankful for the platform that they now fight off because of his success. But I think, personally, I think in the last year and a half, I think that's bared heavy on him.
I agree.
Outside of the ring.
I think he needs to get. I think he should get away. You know, I think the stresses of living in the UK. Someone came out with a great line the other day. I can't remember it exactly, but it was something like, "Success is not. You know, success does not always bring happiness."
No, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, he's such a down-to-earth, normal guy. And the problem with AJ is he gives everybody time, and it's so draining because he's not that guy that will just go, like, let's have a photo, let's do this. No. Like, he'll spend an hour doing it. And it is, but then you do that, you come out the gym, you know, he's in Loughborough, then he's like, goes for something to eat in a cafe, then all of a sudden students are there, then someone's shouting something out the window, you know, saw that, and then it's like, you just become, like, even like when the Conor Benn stuff was going on, or, you know, with the AJ Fury, even like me, I'm 1,000th time as well known as him, it's like, come out of the office, you get on track, oh, what's happening with that? And you're feeling like shit anyway. Yeah. What do you think about this?
Why are you in the frozen food aisle?
But imagine him, like, it's just, I don't think it's an enjoyable life.
No, and you're right. I remember walking down a beach in Dubai, and this was probably pre-COVID, but Anthony, we'd met before in other areas, and he was the one that came up to me, said hello to me, said hello to my family. You know, it's a certain type of individual to do that. And I just think as well, timing is a big thing in life. And I think, you know, Fury with Sugar Hill, they got together at a time and they've gone on this journey. And I think, you know, if the Fury Anthony Joshua fight was spoken about, like you said, before Wilder, it would be a very different conversation. There'd be a very different feeling, you know. And I think that's, you know, and you're right, Fury knows exactly what to say and when to say it. And I think, yeah, look, I hope for Anthony as a man, not just a boxer, that, you know, I watched the second Usyk fight back twice. That was a really close fight against what I think is a very special boxer in Usyk. And, you know, his movement is unbelievable, his angles, his footwork. You know, Anthony carried him. That fight was close. It was closer than I thought.
I think we got this.
And I thought he could have stopped him.
11, 12,
you know, it wasn't a landslide by any, and it was a significant difference from the first fight. So I think for me, you know, that whole does Fury and AJ fight, Eddie, if you don't make it happen, we'll all be upset. But
this time next year, man. That's what we want to. Yeah, late next year.
Let's see what happens with Fury Usyk. I think Fury beats Usyk.
I think, to be fair, I think Fury, I can't argue with him. He's the best heavyweight in the world, but I favour AJ. And if I was both men and I retired and I look back at my career, I'd rather have AJ's career, I'll be honest with you.
But I think AJ, if AJ's firing, he can win that fight.
I've always had AJ to win that fight.
The worst thing that you want to do against Tyson Fury is going second-guessing yourself. Because he'll manipulate you. And the interesting thing about the Usyk fight is, Usyk will play games with Fury, and that's like, I'm talking about outside the ring mentally. You see this thing now, Luke, you know, this whole thing.
What's that about, though?
Well, that's his name, Luke Fury, is his real name. You know, Tyson. So it's like, I listened to what Luke said. This is his new thing now, Usyk, and he just knows that probably Tyson don't like to be called Luke. We know that in the past, but he'll die, and there'll be a really interesting build-up because because Tyson's the master of really, what he did to Dillian Whyte was great. He sort of old-manned him and befriended him in the build-up to the point where, at the weigh-in, they're hugging each other. Like, the only chance Dillian had in that fight was to beat a Dillian Whyte that was just a ruthless street guy who's just going to terrorise him. But next thing, they're cuddling, and then they get in the ring, it's like, touch gloves, mate. And then next thing, it's like,
you think Fury Usyk happens?
Probably, yeah, because I think there's just too much money for it in the Middle East. But fingers crossed.
Just briefly going back to Anthony Joshua, yeah, it picked up on the point you were making there. I think it's really important that he starts to trust himself again, and also trust in the experience that he's had. You talked about Robert McCracken in the 5th and 6th rounds in the big fight at Wembley and how important he was. But Josh sat down at the end of the 8th round and said to Rob, I took a round off. He had that presence of mind, having been on the deck. He had the presence of mind in a fight that still could have gone either way, to take the round off. That was him in there. I remember Ricky Hatton saying at one stage, whoever your trainer is in your corner, there comes a point sometimes, not every fight, but 6, 7, 8, it's getting really hard when only you can find the answers. Doesn't matter what's going in your head, those 40 seconds, you're not hearing anything.
I think sometimes he forgets how good he is. Yeah. You know, and like you said, those defeats to Usyk, it's like you've lost to the pound for pound number one, 115, 113. After 9 rounds, you look like the favourite in that fight.
Layman focuses on the size, and if you're more of a, I guess, a student of the sport, you understand that only goes so far. You know, in terms of size, Usyk is pound for pound a very special fighter, and his work rate, his output for 12 rounds, I don't think many
what
can
he did
match
in
that.
10, 11, 12 was unbelievable. I mean, I went over at the end of the 9th to AJ's corner, just screaming, "You got him. Just keep the press." Usyk came out, threw more punches in the 10th, 11th and 12th than he did, I think, for the other. It was unbelievable. He said to himself, I need to stick it on him here, because otherwise he's going to just walk me down and beat me up. It was unbelievable. Go on, Ev.
I'm going to go with the mic.
Oh, go on, then. I'm sorry. Go on.
But you already beat me once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember.
Go on then.
Oh, thank you. At least I can win in the ring. Fighter of the year.
Question.
Bivol, man.
Bivol.
Has to be
Yeah,
Bivol.
yeah.
Has to be Bivol.
Do you know the only thing though is those elite fighters, they fight so infrequently. They're like twice a year. Bivol's boxed this year. I mean, the
Bivol fought end of last year as well, innit?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. But you know, and also looks like a great win, great performance by Craig Richards actually when you look back at it. But,
Definitely.
You know,
Yeah.
now his year has been Canelo Alvarez, Zurdo Ramirez. Do you know what I mean? And I find it difficult to give a fighter of the year to someone that's boxed only twice. But I agree with you. Jesse Rodriguez, our other guy, you know, he's boxed 3 times this year. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard now you listen to that, it's hard to disagree. Maybe Fury as well. I mean, when was the last Wilder fight? Was that in this year?
No, this year he's boxed Dillian White and Derek Chisora. Yeah. So yeah, it's a difficult one. But there's not many fighters. I mean, you look at like Terence Crawford, how inactive he's been. He's been out for a year. Charlo's, like, he ain't boxed for 15 months or something like that. So I like the guys that have stayed active, you know?
I think Bivol is a clear winner of fight of the year, because even though he's only had a couple, then all of the other contenders.
He's destroyed Mexico, basically.
But I got a spin-off question to that. It's of you, right?
Oh, sorry.
Go on, who are you going to say?
I want to say Clarissa Shields for me, for this female fight. And just, I just wanted to say that what she did in her fight with Savannah as well, and just how she is, I think I had to bring a women into this because she's incredible.
She has definitely
Man, but yes.
But the spin-off was Canelo Alvarez, pound for pound number 1, moves up him. I mean, he should never have really been boxing at 175. Should you lose your pound for pound position for doing that? It's amazing. Like he was such the clear pound for pound.
But isn't that the
number 1.
point of pound for pound, that you can fight at any weight division?
Yeah, I suppose so. That's like, how'd you go from 1 to like 6 or 7? Like you lose that fight, and then next thing, you know.
I mean, I would have said, if you didn't say Bivol, I probably would have said Canelo, just because of he just continues to be great. But
we'll switch that, and this question's to you.
Okay.
It might come later, but just in case. Pound for pound number 1 in boxing.
No,
right now in boxing, pound for pound number 1.
I've got Canelo.
I still think
Canelo or
Canelo.
Nunes?
Canelo, yeah. How could it not be?
Yeah, I like, you just mentioned him, I like Inoue.
Oh, Inoue,
Inue's amazing.
The only thing I was thinking about
When was his
Inoue
last
is
fight?
Last night?
When you
No,
actually
yesterday.
because I've been,
But when you look at the actual opposition, right, and I think he can beat much better opposition, but when you start dissecting resumes, and you go, look, Paul Butler was like the other champ, so he had to fight him, but Benito Donaire twice, and like, I know, but Benito Donaire is like, the first one was an amazing fight, but look, this guy, listen, I took Jamie McDonald to Tokyo to fight him, 1 round he went. I mean, like, he's an absolute monster, but it's hard down at that weight class, isn't it, to like acknowledge. Yeah. It's not like he's beating Chocolatito, Estrada, because they're not his division, but you know, like when there's that weight class.
Yeah, but it's how he did it. The right hand that beat Payano and the body shot that did for Rodriguez, was it in the World Boxing Super Series? It's the way the opponents look when he's hit them. Yeah. They've got this demeanour that says, I've never been hit like that ever, and
it's hard to be a little guy and get known out there. So to be a little guy from Japan, and we're all talking about him now, to be one of the pound for pounds, it goes to show what he's done.
I think Terence Crawford's right up there. I mean, I watched him the other night. I mean, he made
Evan Neeson, I've seen him light people up
here. Do you think so?
I would, yeah.
I favour Spence in that fight, yeah. I always have favoured Spence, but it's after the crash, it's that conversation.
I think Spence now, look at him and you see the videos of him having a few beers and stuff like that.
I don't have a car crash
no,
over there,
I know, but it's like, that car crash was so, I mean, I can't believe he's made it out of that. Then he had the retina operation. Do you know what I mean? Now he's tight at 147. And I look like Avanesian's like at a European level, he's a world-class, just sort of fringe world-class guy. Mate, he played, I mean, it was like, you know, and you look at what Avanesian, when he goes through the likes of Josh Kelly and stuff like that, Crawford's just, you know, very, very good fighter.
And I was thinking, we were talking the other night, because Metcalf was on the bill the other night, we were just talking about the number of levels of really, really good fighters. You talk about, so we go home from Leeds and we see Crawford beat Avanesian. Avanesian had beaten Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly beat Troy Williamson. Troy Williamson beat Ted Cheeseman. Ted Cheeseman beat Metcalf. And all of these are very, very good fighters.
I think Devin Haney as well.
Yeah, Devin's good. Devin's difficult. Devin's never really going to get the credit because he's not overly exciting, but his skill set's unbelievable. 22, 23 years old, like, you know, been brought up around boxing. But I was thinking that the other day because when Josh Kelly beat Troy Williamson, they're like, he's back. It's like, no, he's just dropped off David Avanesian down to Troy Williamson, who's a very good domestic fighter. But he's beaten a British level guy and he's lost to a European or fringe world guy. So he might be back, but you can't, you know, and then you think, well, Avanesian's good, he's strong, and then he fights Crawford and you go, what a chronic mismatch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, we've got a crack.
Oh, this is a good one. Upset of the year?
Well, I think the Connolly.
Connolly would? Yeah, I mean,
for me, slightly not upset, but how Josh Taylor won that fight.
Catterall.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I there's sometimes I watch boxing and I think.
Not upset of the year, but making you upset.
Yeah.
We'll take that.
I know what you mean by upset.
And it would actually have been,
like an underdog.
had it gone the way just about everybody believes, would have been one of the upsets.
It would have been if it went the other way.
For sure. No one gave him a chance.
I just couldn't believe when the scorecards were read out. Honestly, I'm sure you felt the same.
Yeah, but you know the furore about that is that it wasn't just for a world title belt. It was for every single belt in the division. So what you actually did was you robbed the kid from Chorley of winning every belt in the division in one fight as an underdog.
Can I be honest? I think I gave Taylor one round.
Oh, I thought it was closer than that.
I just felt that what Catterall did was he won the first 5 or 6
exactly,
rounds, and then he kind of like he still won the fight comfortable, but
you can't back off in the last few rounds, like in the championship rounds as well. Like, I mean, not that I'm not saying, but I'm just like it looked like he backed off. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, anyways. But sorry, when I thought of upset, it's obviously like an underdog winning, not like a turn of events.
I kind of turned it to most controversial.
So you don't forget Bivol against Canelo.
Oh, right, there we go.
It was 4-1.
There we go. That's probably
massive in boxing.
That's probably
biggest upset's not a fight for me. It's a name. It's Kiko Martinez, man.
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, Kiko. Well, actually, although it was November last year, Kiko knocking out Kid Galahad was one of the most unbelievable things I've seen. You know, because actually, like, he was out of the fight, wasn't it? He wasn't even close in that fight at all. But yeah, I agree with Mike. I think the Bivol, although people in boxing knew how good Bivol was, no one gave him a chance in that fight at all. You know.
Which is funny, really, isn't it? Because when you think about, like you said, Canelo going up to that weight, it's like, but because it's Canelo, everyone was like,
And after, everyone was going, we should have actually realised this.
Give him a chance.
And it's not just, it wasn't just the result, was it? It was the way it came about. He was so dominant throughout the fight.
Hey. Don't worry, mate. We got it here. We're all good. YouTube boxing. Discuss.
Well, I can talk about that because of my friend Elle.
Yeah.
Look, I'm all about, look, I understand what YouTube boxing is. For me, I believe YouTube boxing is its own thing. Just like amateur boxing isn't pro boxing. I just think YouTube boxing is like just another sport. You know what I mean? It's not really...
Well, not even sport.
Yeah, well, it's
Like
not...
entertain- like-
some of
It's
them are getting
entertainment.
good
It's,
though, man.
yeah, of
not
course.
just Jake Pauls and KSI.
No,
Some of the
exactly.
lower level ones are actually getting
Like,
decent.
for example, my friend Elbrook, right? I see her in the gym for the last, 4 or 5 months. She's never put on a glove before. And I've seen her come in the gym every single day, like, put on, like, work just as hard as all of us. She's so dedicated and she's so disciplined. Like, she listens. She's, just because of, like, you know, the whole YouTube fame and the TikTok fame and all that kind of stuff, doesn't mean that she doesn't take it seriously, because she's fallen in love with it and she does take it seriously. The only difference is that instead of doing the amateurs like you would when you first start out and put on gloves and no one sees it, these TikTokers and YouTube, they're having their first few fights, you know, like with this huge audience. So we're looking at them going, oh, they can't box, or they can't do this and that. Of course they can't, they're novices. You know what I mean? But they're not fighting for world titles.
No, but they're making money what a lot of people, good level boxers, might not even get the opportunity
Yeah,
to
but
make.
that's because of the graft that they put in before.
I think that's what
But
upsets
listen,
people.
this is where I'm looking at it as from a promoter's point of view. They are making money, but nowhere near what fighters are making without any commercial value. And I'm quite jealous now, because you look at like the show coming up on January the 14th with KSI. There's like these random people fighting each other. Actually good matchups.
It's gonna be a good card.
But it's like, it's not like boxing where there's like 3 agents and a lawyer and he's going, I want 400 grand. And it's like, on what basis? You don't sell a ticket, you don't drive a subscriber. Well, that's just what the market pays, correct. But the market's mental at the moment, right? Good luck to fighters. But these YouTubers, it's more like, if you want to fight, you can fight him. And they're just like, all right then. You know, and it's like, you're getting 30 or 40 grand, you're getting 30, that sounds like a lot of money. Sweet. And it's like, it's a bit like, not UFC, but the model where it's just literally like, if you want to go and it's you v you. Just so random. How much do you weigh? 12 stone. What are you about that? Yeah, sweet.
So, but they don't even have to be the same weight.
on me, man.
But they don't even have to be. They don't have to be the same weight. But it's really like, I think it's just pure entertainment. Almost not like WWE, but almost is like, if you see the press conferences and the weigh-ins, like there's just some of the stuff that they say, you would not have a boxer say that. And I think when they start boxing properly and start getting respect for the boxing like you do every time, when you start combat sports, you realise the respect in there, you know, that starts to tame down a little bit. They're like, okay, no, like you wouldn't really say that like to someone, but some of the stuff they say is so wild, and the stuff they do, because it is all entertainment.
But they've got to be, I think they've got to be careful. There's been a few punch-ups at the press conferences, and you know, actually, the problem is talk about role models. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys, not, you know, but I'd prefer role models to be actual athletes, really, like as a parent. But like, these guys are role models for kids. So, well, the last thing you want is like them chasing each other down the street and punching each other.
I do think as well, my only, when I look at it, I understand the commercial side completely. But I think it, you know, it takes away from the sport. In my opinion, it takes away from, you talk about.
I'll show you how. I'll tell you how it can boost it. But you finish your.
Yeah,
point.
no, I think from if I make it comparable to my industry now, you know, I MasterChef on TV or something, I look at these kids and I'm like, honestly, like, you know, someone that's worked at the top level restaurants their whole career. I spent 15 years training around the world. I hold 2 Michelin stars myself. I worked really hard for that, and people coming off TV and they're like, oh, I'm going to open a restaurant. It's like, okay, good luck. And they get the backing or they get the support because they've got
profile.
Exactly. And I think it gives more eyes to boxing, but I don't think in the right light, personally.
And my point is to follow on from just what you've been saying. 10 years ago, I covered a fight when I was working for BBC Radio. David Price was boxing for the British heavyweight title against Matt Skelton. And on the same night, Freddie Flintoff was boxing in Manchester.
That TV show,
and that was the only one that was getting any attention on the night. There was a British heavyweight title fight. What I would say about Freddie Flintoff was they backed him with a television show. I can't remember whether it was
Channel
one
5,
of
I think.
one of them, or Sky One or somewhere like
No,
that.
it was
backed
ITV,
him,
wasn't it?
and they followed him training. and they had, you know, an hour-long episode. It might have been 2 or 3 episodes. And he really did go for it. I mean, he went for it, and they showed him sparring.
Did he lose?
No, he won.
Did he win?
Points, yeah.
But he got a heavy sparring, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah, I remember one instance. He got out of the ring and he sat on the ring apron and his nose was bleeding and he had his head down like that. And it just summed up. And when he went to the ring on the night at the Manchester Arena, I mean, quite frankly, he was poor. He wasn't even mediocre. And it just struck me that that was a really good advert for the best of boxing, because if you've got to do what he did over months and months and months to be useless, imagine what Mayweather's got to do. And I thought that really underpinned how much it takes, going back to what you're saying about, you know, a life in restaurants and life in kitchens, how much it takes to get anywhere near the top. Just imagine if Flintoff's done all of that, what Mayweather's done, what Pacquiao's done.
Yeah, I think it's a reflection of our time, though. You know, I think now I look at I have a lot of young kids that want to come and work with me. I think they're slightly disillusional to what it actually takes to get there because of what's pushed on them through social media and, you know, what they deem success to be and how they get there. And it's, you know, I think it's down to key people in our industries. So like yourself, Eddie, in your industry, and it can translate to any industry, is to, you know, I think we have to take it upon ourselves to be responsible, to educate people to do things correctly. But I also understand the commercial value of the YouTube side, and I think coming back to what you said, it's just a separate thing. Yeah. It's a separate thing.
You've got to be careful though, because broadcasters will look at it over time and go, if it keeps outperforming boxing, which it does sometimes, like the KSI one will be a big one.
KSI Jake Paul, as far-fetched as it sounds, it could be one of the highest grossing pay-per-views ever in boxing, more than Mayweather's, more than all their fights. But that's why we're under pressure to actually keep making good fights, because if you don't make fights that deliver numbers, broadcasters will always look at alternatives, whether that's YouTube, boxing, whether that's other sports, whether that's entertainment series, whatever. So I think Eb's right. I think it's entertainment, but
you just have to look at it separately. These guys aren't, people like boxers, other boxers that get angry and get upset about it. Oh, they're earning so much money, they're getting all this kind of stuff. I think they're not fighting for your world titles. One, we're in boxing for full time. The money that they're getting is because, don't forget, they might have only just started boxing, but they've been grafting in their industry, grafting in as a YouTuber or grafting as a TikTok or whatever they're doing to get that name to be able to earn that money. They're not earning that money because of their boxing. They're earning that money because of their career that they've been grafting, that they started here at. So you need to respect that. It's just, I'm all about marketing. I'm all about entertainment, and I understand sales and I understand commercial value. That's why I am the way I am, and because I get it, and that's exactly what they're doing. You know what I mean? That's exactly what they've done. It's just about driving numbers, and we're in that industry. But you can't compare them as the same thing. It isn't the same thing. They're like just novice boxers that have a platform already, and they're making money from it.
A lot of them have a lot of money behind them as well, so they can.
And they're not even doing it for money, but really.
They can go into boxing gyms, smaller boxing gyms, famous boxing gyms, and have a following, and they'll think they'll boost us up just by opening the door to them as well. Yeah. So they'll let them in there. Then you've got your money for your strength and your nutrition and everything.
Exactly. Well, you look at Jake Paul with Serrano, like, you know what I mean? That's just like a little example. Serrano wouldn't even really be known that well globally or making that money if it wasn't for people like Jake Paul. And I think generally he loves boxing and wants to help people. You know, I'm not saying all the TikTokers and all the YouTubers are like that, but you can't judge everyone the same. Everyone is not the same, you know, and you can look at all these YouTubers and put them all in the same boat. You can look at boxers and say they're all the same, but really they're all individuals. But if you're looking at it as the sport and the career, you have to separate it and not compare them, because they aren't the same. They're hitting each other, but yeah, so is kickboxing and Muay Thai and whatever, you know, but UFC, but they're still not the same sport.
Well, Tom and Mike, do the honours for the last one. This would be a much better Christmas dinner than a normal one, wouldn't it?
It's a good one to finish on. Yeah, knockout of the year.
I mean,
I can sway with Wood and
the only thing was, is like you said, it wasn't like, you know, you always think a knockout of the year is going to be like the shot that it's like, and although that was out of the ring, it was. I mean, I actually, you know, again, wrong year, but you know, you go back to like Kiko Martinez, Kid Galahad, you know, like it's a one shot.
Actually, you know, knockout for the year for me. Cordina's knockout for me, you know.
Yes.
That was that, and being in the arena as well, and obviously the mood. Everyone thought, what's his name? Agawa. Everyone thought he was going to win. Yeah. It was quite moody in there. Who had the fight before? Zalfa fought someone before. Yeah. It's got a little build-up, and then what round was it? Second or third? Bosh, gone, sleeping. And then we went out in Cardiff that night, and the whole streets of Cardiff were just singing his name, and it was a good one to see. To be fair.
It was interesting how Joe almost, I remember saying in commentary something along the lines of he almost danced back to his corner when the bell sounded at the end of the first round. There was something in that first round, going back to what we were saying about AJ and just believing in what you've experienced and what you're feeling. There was something in Cordina in that first round that gave him the belief that he had Agolwa's number, and then you see what he did in the second round, and the technique of it, he just fainted to go.
It's beautiful feint, yeah. I watched it, yeah.
It's so simple at the highest level.
You know what, as well, though, Mike, that the better the fighter, sometimes fighters come through and they don't have the knockout ratio, and then they fight better quality opposition, and they start knocking people out. Joe Cordina's the same. He's a real sharp puncher. He's not like a heavy, if he's fighting a negative guy, he's not going to back him up and beat him up and stop him and get him out of there.
He's screaming for Shakur, man.
I know. But I think you're right. I think in terms of one-punch drama, I think Cordina, Agawa was the one. Leewood was a great knockout, but...
The whole thing behind it and how late it was, the drama in the fight, but I think just bang, lost one shot, see you later, give me your title. Cordina for me to be...
Fury's uppercut against Dillian Whyte was beautiful, and Dillian Whyte's record against being done by uppercuts. It's just incredible.
I mean, well, talking of that, I mean, the shot that put him to sleep behind closed doors against Vetkin.
Same shot. That was unbelievable. But you imagine that, right? So that's in my garden, right? There's no crowd then on that fight camp.
You could hear it.
It was like, and all you can hear is people, oh, what? No. And then you could hear Dillian, get off. Like once he goes, I'm all right. You know, he's trying, and it's like, and he was out, Povetkin. Been down 3 times. He was finished, you know?
That was a great fight as well, to be fair. Imagine if that was in a stadium with crowd, 4 knockdowns.
I know, unbelievable. Well, happy Christmas, everyone. We could talk boxing for hours and hours. 2022 has been a lot of fun. 2023, here we come.